Good. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. A little bit of an echo. Welcome to a public meeting of the New York City Racial Justice Commission. Want to welcome everyone into this space and just begin by sharing that we have gathered in person. It's been a while since we've been together in person, but we, while in person, also are online. And so we have the public leaning in with us. I'm not sure, but in a moment I may learn that we also have commissioners who are leaning in. Okay, all commissioners are present. That's good to know, good to hear. But it's the first time that we've gathered in person in a very, very long time. Just because we haven't been together, though, doesn't mean that the work hasn't continued. The work has continued in earnest, and as the commission members are gathered, also gathered are many members of the leadership and staff at the Racial Justice Commission, along with some of our new partners in the space. So I want to welcome everybody into this public meeting, along with those who are watching online and those who will at a later point in time view the footage from this meeting. Welcome to our public meeting. We will begin with a vote from the last meeting, the minutes of the meeting, and then we're going to have a conversation, hearing first from our new partners in the space. We're going to hear from, well, I should say first we're going to hear from our executive director, and we'll talk about him in a moment, Harold Miller, and then we'll have an update on our outreach education campaign, the Voters Education Campaign, followed by a presentation of the strategy for engagement by our new partner, Mirror Group, which is the campaign management vendor. And then following that, we'll have an opportunity to have some questions and conversation. Finally, we'll have a presentation from Sadia Sherman, who is the commissioner of the new office of equity, the mayor's office of equity, established under Mayor Eric Adams. Before we get into the vote, which is the first order of business, I just want to take a minute to express my appreciation to all of the commission members for staying the course. It was a little better than, I guess now, goodness help me y'all, maybe 15, 16 months ago that we began this journey together. And the commission members have stayed the course, as well as several of the staff who are with us today and some new staff persons, in helping us to critically, put a critical eye on New York City government and government functioning, to begin to identify ways that we could together as a city dismantle structural racism, appreciating that racism in our society is not just a one-to-one relationship. For so long, we lived in a society where we were led to believe that racism was, all about your neighbor not liking you or somebody not liking your kid in school because of the color of their skin. You're not getting a job because of that one individual. And the more that, that you look at these issues and you dig in, you appreciate they are structural in nature, that our society is set up in such a way to allow racism and all of its tentacles to persist. At times it seems without anybody, even some people, not anybody, but many people not even being conscious of how they exist and they persist. And so this commission and the commissioners and the commission staff were charged with the responsibility of looking at New York City government functioning and beginning to identify ways, identifying ways of beginning to dismantle structural racism as embedded in our government, beginning with the New York City Charter, which is our Constitution. And so the commissioners, I want you all to just make sure that everybody, you give your name and sign yourself into this meeting, but the commissioners, along with, I'm looking at several individuals, have just done a tremendous job working with the commissioners who are before you. We all came together and we studied this issue, and we came up with 3 ballot proposals that now will appear on the ballot in November during the general election. And those measures now will be put before the New York City electorate for them to decide if they're going to take the first steps at working to upend structural racism here in New York City. And so we want to do our best to make sure that all of New York City is aware of these measures and has the information that they need about them to make an informed decision about whether they choose to vote for them or not. At the end of the day, I'm proud of the fact that this commission, commissioners and the staff together have put forward a game plan that if the city chooses to act, or I should say the city electorate, would begin to dismantle structural racism here in New York City. And as we know, so goes the city, so goes New York, so goes the nation, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a real opportunity here. Let's take a quick minute before we delve into the minutes just to have a roll call of the commissioners who have gathered this afternoon. And we're going to go from left to right, so if we would begin with.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Daniel Favors. Excited to be here and see you all in person once again.
Good afternoon. I'm Phil Thompson. Happy to see you.
Good afternoon. Christopher Coy.
I don't think I gave my name, so I'm Commissioner Jennifer Jones Austin.
Good afternoon, Kay Bain.
Hi, I'm Fred Davey.
Joanne Yu.
Ana Bermudez.
Excellent. All right. And not present with us is two commissioners, Commissioner Yesenia Mata and Commissioner Henry Garrido. And Commissioner Derek Hamilton. We won't say where he is, but some of us are on social media with him. Let's just say he's having a really good time and much deserved. He's earned that time. Good for him. All right, so we have the minutes of our last meeting, minutes of the May 2nd, 2022 meeting of the New York City Racial Justice Commission. They've been shared with the commission members, and I would ask you all to take a minute to just review them. And
I'll move approval, Madam Chair.
all right, do I have a second?
Second.
Having provided enough time, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Any opposed? I am in favor as well. The minute meetings of May 2nd, 22 have passed. All right, so again, today's meeting, the purpose of today's meeting is to ensure that both commission members as well as New York City people are fully apprised of the efforts being undertaken right now to ensure that New York City, all New York City voters have an appreciation of the ballot measures as they will appear come November. And then also to hear from the City of New York about the efforts that they already are engaging in to build equity here in New York City. I'm going to turn the meeting over now at this point to our Executive Director, Harold Miller, who's been at the helm for some time now and who is paying the price. He's playing the chief coordination and leadership role as we move towards the election.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see all the commissioners here and good to see my colleagues and our consultants are present here today. Painless at all. This has been a pleasure working for this commission for the last several months. And tomorrow marks 1 year since I joined the commission, so it's been a great 365 for me working on this commission. So we're very excited to share several campaign updates with you all. As a reminder, our goal is to educate as many New Yorkers as possible on the 3 ballot measures that are intended to begin to dismantle structural racism in our city. It's important that we all communicate with all the communities as possible, communities of all backgrounds, give them a chance to vote yes or no on the ballot measures. And as stated before, adding a statement of values to our city charter, establishing a racial equity office plan and commission, as well as measuring the true cost of living. The first phase of our campaign planning is near ending, as the staff has secured several consultants to aid in our efforts. We're very pleased to have the Moran Group, Hamilton Campaign Network as our general consultant and campaign manager strategist. We also have the Banduho Advertising and Design organization as our creative consultant. St. Clair Social as our digital engagement consultant. KPS Strategies as our outreach and engagement consultant. And then we have Erickson Translation that will manage our translation interpretation services. And matter of fact, for those watching, those who are on ASL is provided by Erickson Translation. So we are working towards the selection of our media consultants right now, and we'll work with our chair and colleagues on the team to select and confirm media partners who has the capacity to reach several different communities, specifically those who receive news and information in languages other than English or Spanish. I got this little clicker here. Follow along. Our collaboration efforts. We believe we cannot do this on our own. Change does not happen alone, and we know that we host internal and external partners to share our passion for racial equity. And to that end, we launched a $250,000 community partnership program where organizations from all 5 boroughs have an opportunity to apply for funding up to $20,000, and based on several factors, which include their community size, their frequency, and types of engagement. And we intend to fund as many community organizations as possible with that funding, with the intent to educate voters about these 3 ballot measures that intended to address the inequities of the city. Applications for the program closed this past Monday, and we had 105 community-based organizations that turned in the applications on time. And then several additional ones that turned it in after the deadline. And so we're very excited that we had a lot of interest from the various organizations around the city. Our team is in a process of reviewing these applications and plan to inform the selected organizations in the next couple of weeks. Each organization will receive training on our education-based engagement plans, online resources, RJC merchandise, or swag as we call it nowadays, for distribution, RJC staff and commissioner attendance where possible for their events. We're also working closely with our interagency partners, collaborative efforts to establish alongside with the Civic Engagement Commission, their participatory budget campaign, the equity team at the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, and the Mayor's Office of Equity are some of the partners that we are working with on the city side. Our goal is to join in the creation of and partnership in civic education efforts, so that all New Yorkers are aware of these ballot measures. So we are proud to work alongside the Moran Group, the Hamilton Campaign Network, and to both our NWB certified firms that offer key strategic decisions for this campaign. It's been a pleasure to work with them and all our consultants thus far, and we're looking forward to helping us bring this campaign home where we can educate the public. So I invite representative from the Moran Group, the Hamilton Campaign Network, Melissa Mark Viverito, to share about the campaign plans.
Glad to have you here with us, the Honorable Melissa Mark Viverito. And we need to make sure that she has a microphone, and
Yeah.
where is she? Oh, is there?
Well, originally on the station right there.
Why don't you come here? You come here. Come on.
I will take.
And as she's coming and just sitting down, I just want to take a minute to commend the commission team for all of their work over the course of the last, I'd say, for goodness, maybe about 8 to 10 weeks, getting these proposals out for various vendors and community-based partners. A lot of work. Every one of us probably in this room has at one point or another touched a proposal. Whether we created a request for proposals or we submitted a proposal, we evaluated a proposal. And they've been working round the clock to stand up this operation. And so they are to be commended for the tremendous work that they've done and that they've gotten us partners like the Moran Group. We're elated, excited about it. And I just want to quickly say that 105 community-based organizations putting forth proposals to be a part of this effort is tremendous. It's amazing. And I see that as a great sign that word is getting out there and the community wants to be a part of this effort to make sure that they are as fully informed, those who are voting, as possible. So congratulations to the team at the commission that has done this work. Thank you.
I did wanna also add to that, Jennifer. First of all, I'm Melissa Riverito. Pleasure. Many of you I know, and some of you that I'm getting to know. Here with my colleagues Anita Tower-Mayer and Reginald Johnson and Scott Berlin from the Hamilton and Moran Collaborative here to present. And I want to say that when I was looking at the ballot proposals first, I remember many years ago, Jennifer, when I was a council member, and being very, very impressed with what was called at the time the self-sufficiency standard. Remember that the Federation had been putting out for many years, and I thought that was an amazing tool for us as legislators and policymakers to really get at what it really costs to live in the city of New York, and what were the barriers that existed, right, to really providing a living wage that took a look at a whole bunch of things. How much it costs to provide food, how much it could to provide medical services, et cetera. So now that it's going to be a ballot initiative, where it's going to be part of the operations of the city and the standard practice, I think is really an amazing step. So I'm very excited about us being partners with the Racial Justice Commission. The staff has been really wonderful as well in being able to shape and look at strategically how we're going to implement this education program to ensure maximum participation of voters to engage with the ballot proposals and to therefore vote. Obviously, we're not telling them in which direction to vote. It is about really encouraging people to know that as you're going to vote, that there are other initiatives that you need to really take a look at and to be able to educate people on what they are and what they provide. So that's kind of like the charge that we have before us. So the way that we're looking at the strategy, and if I get stuck on any of the data or analysis here, Scott can help me with that part of it, is really taking a look at past election data. There is a lot of data out there. We can really take a look at it. And we actually were able to look at last voting cycles where there were ballot proposals on the ballots. And where was it that there was a drop-off? What neighborhoods, what electoral districts was it that we saw large numbers of drop-off of people that have just voted on the top aspects of the ballot but not necessarily engaged with the ballot initiative. So we really are able to take a look at that and honing in on those electoral districts by borough to really target the crux of the strategy of this campaign. So in these maps that we shared in the proposal, it is looking by borough, where are the neighborhoods, and obviously the dense deep red is really where the major drop-off was happening by borough. When we look at the Bronx, for instance, there's about 332 electoral districts. When you look at the bottom quartile of voters that we would be focusing on, it's about 336,000 voters in the Bronx. When you look at Brooklyn, it's about 615,000 voters in about 652 electoral districts. In Manhattan, it's about 250,000 voters. Representing 250 EDs in the city of in Manhattan. In Queens, 151 EDs for representing 151,000 voters. And Staten Island actually didn't have any, unfortunately, EDs where there was that significant a drop off, at least with regards to the quartiles that we're looking at, which is the bottom quartile. I'm sure Jasenia will give me a lot of feedback on that. But we can talk about that later, because I'm sure there's neighborhoods within the borough that we might want to revisit and take a look at. So if you look at that slide, the cohort is really talking about a broad, citywide focused multilingual media campaign across TV that basically would access and be available to all voters. Radio would be part of that. Some digital maybe would be part of that. And then cohort 2 would be more of a micro-targeted campaign, really kind of focusing on these particular neighborhoods where we have seen a drop-off, again, multilingual in terms of that digital campaign. Ethnic media, community media, it has to be a really critical partner in this strategy. I'm a strong proponent of that. I did that very strongly when I was speaker, that if we want to effectively communicate with the city of New York, we've got to really look micro-targeting neighborhoods and how they access information. And then obviously direct voter outreach via community groups. Anita is really great at that, having managed NYC Votes. So as obviously a colleague and a partner, she's gonna have a big role in working with the community engagement piece of this proposal and making sure that we're really looking at these communities that, again, we've targeted. So those were the four maps, I'm sorry, since we don't have Staten Island in here. You can have access to this, we'll send it over and you can hone in, and hopefully we'll be able to provide larger maps with more detail moving forward. And then the last thing was just a very quick kind of, unless if anybody has any, after I present, any specific questions about the data, please feel free to ask. But the vendor management slide, which basically just takes a look at the organizational chart and what it's going to look like. This is a very short campaign. Obviously, it's very intense. So we don't want to create too many layers of communication and reporting, right? We want to have direct communication with the vendors, mapping out what the goals and strategies are for each. Communications would be one bucket, right? Obviously, community engagement is another bucket, media is another bucket, really meeting weekly, setting targets, making sure we're meeting those goals. So it'll be more of a direct communication structure between us as a lead consultant, campaign manager, and the vendors that have been assigned. And I think the only ones left, I think you all right, was paid digital media
Yes.
and paid media. So are the only vendors that are still left to select, and will be towards the latter end of the campaign. So there's a little bit of time on that. So again, that's kind of where we are. I wanted to leave it open for any questions, and that's kind of giving you some insight into how we're approaching the campaign in general. So I'll leave it there.
Very much appreciated. So I imagine that our commission members do have questions. If you do, please just raise your hand, and I'm in a position to see everyone. I'll kick us off. I find myself, out and about talking about the work of the commission, about the ballot measures in different spaces, in different places with different people and communities. And some have an awareness, some have no awareness. And so, and often what the question presented to me is, when are we going to start seeing information in the public about the ballot measures? So my question to you is, when you think about all the different pieces that have to be essentially sewn together to get this moving, when might New Yorkers begin to, the everyday New Yorker, have some awareness just by being in a public space, or some type of community-related event? Is this really to pick up, say, in September, with this mad dash, September through October? What's the sense?
Well, we're going to be able to get deeper into that. I would ask my colleagues to feel free to jump in at any point. But obviously, we have a lot of experience with paid political campaigns and with non-political campaigns. So we're kind of looking at this from a political campaign perspective in that, first of all, we have very limited resources. Let's start with that, right? And when you talk about paid media in New York City, it's very expensive. And also people's attention, right? You don't want to get out too far ahead of it with the limited resources you have, where you start communicating now with folks that they might forget about what it is that they're going to be voting on when they get to the ballot. So in terms of starting a little bit towards the end phase, maybe the last 2 months, 2.5 months, if anybody wants to jump in on that and add to that, but that's kind of what we would talk about. digital media, paid media, obviously, that's gonna be a cost and resources. And so we have to be very careful about it. The community engagement piece is something that could start sooner, right? And looking in at these communities that we've targeted, when you start layering in, right? Having community conversations, forums, and really digging down a little deep, you know, with the community engagement, you can do that earlier, right? With the paid pieces of it, obviously we have to be a little bit more careful. So I don't know if anybody wants to add to that at all. Yeah.
But no, I would just say I agree, of course, obviously, but when we break up communications, we should look at paid versus what we do as earned media, reporters and editorial boards. We'll start that process relatively sooner, obviously, because it's free, it's earned. And we'll have an opportunity to kind of set the agenda for people who are stakeholders and people who set the agenda for other people. So we'll relatively start that about 3 months ahead of time, 3.5 months ahead.
And I'll just jump in also and say that, yes, I absolutely agree with what Melissa is saying. But those 105 applications that you have, interested organizations, these are influencers for us as well. So I think that is an opportunity to not only them, but as we're continuing, you're going to see more people are going to say, oh, I didn't know about it, I didn't hear about it. I would have loved to have applied as well. But having a space for those people and those organizations to continue to influence as well. So I think the timing is going to be sooner rather than later, because I think as soon as you start to announce, people will be ready.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. I'm actually worried about voter turnout, particularly in communities of color, nationally, as well as locally, and I'm also wondering whether you have any sense of what some of the larger labor unions that often pull their members out, particularly in low turnout elections. I think that could be really important. So I wonder if you have any sense of whether they're gearing up, or if that's something you intend to drill down on.
Anita's
for
talked a
this
lot about
election.
that in terms of the partnerships with community organizations, including our labor unions. Yes, to be honest, we just saw in this last primary how low the turnout was, and that was taking into account that we were having a governor's race, right? Now you're talking about congressional and Senate, and there's gonna probably be people that are not paying attention. That's true.
Yeah.
Hopefully with the work that we are gonna do, it'll generate some enthusiasm, and maybe it will help towards contributing to people getting out to vote. But those are partnerships that we have to engage in. We should be challenging our party structures, you know, to obviously, I'm gonna, you know, that people should be encouraged to participate and vote. But we need labor to be involved. These community-based organizations obviously will also have membership and probably represent communities that would benefit obviously from these proposals, or from just obviously engaging in the political process. So yes, we have those concerns. We're hoping that to some extent maybe there'll be some way that this campaign could also generate enthusiasm and people going out to vote in general. But we share the same concerns as you, without a doubt.
And I presume that as you are building out your strategy, you're taking those concerns into consideration to try to, as best you can, manage to them, I can't say control for them, but building a plan that is ever cognizant of the concerns.
I mean, people are not aware there's a second primary. We've been seeing that in some of the work that we're doing on the ground in other areas. So imagine, when we talk about ballot proposals and ballot initiatives, that's going to be even lower, right? In terms of, we have to make it a priority. We have to make it something that they understand how this impacts their way of life here in the city of New York and benefits us. And so yeah, so that's kind of where.
Thank you. Commissioner Daniel Favors.
Thank you all. I don't know why this is so bumpy. Thank you all for the presentation and the information provided. I wondered if you could perhaps talk us through what the community engagement campaign looks like, specifically with the aforementioned unions, yes, but CBO activation as well. And if you could also speak a bit to digital diversification, sort of what does the digital content look like beyond Facebook ads?
So Scott can speak to that, but just in general, we are starting our weekly meetings with all the vendors this week. So we are going to be meeting with the communications folks, with community engagement folks, which they each are also part of their job and responding to the RFP, was to provide a plan of how exactly they were going to engage the communities. A lot of it is going to be community meetings, conversations. Some will be virtual, others will be in person, because you do have one, Sinclair Social is doing digital, virtual kind of engagement, and then you have the community engagement, KPS Strategies, that's doing more of the community-based work, right? So there's going to be different layers of touch and engagement with folks. So we're going to be starting to really dig down deep into the plan and what that looks like week to week, month to month. And then on the digital side, it's very varied. Scott can maybe speak a little bit about what it looks like beyond Facebook ads. There's a lot that goes into that.
Absolutely. So is everyone able to hear me? Okay, great. So we do have a few different avenues we are looking at for digital. There's not yet any vendor or an RFS for the paid digital portion, just the digital engagement, and the two are completely separate in my mind. Where for the digital engagement, it's similar to what Melissa was just talking about, where it is going to be a lot of the virtual town halls, finding people organically where they are online, versus the digital advertising, which absolutely one avenue we will take is the Facebook and Instagram ads. But going along with the two cohorts of voters that Melissa had talked about was on the slide, you have the people that are the high efficacy voters that we know will come out, as well as the voters who have a propensity for ballot drop-off and the neighborhoods that have a higher propensity for drop-off. We'll be going after them every possible avenue online. So whether it be finding them via video ads, whether it be animated or live video ads, whether they be watching YouTube or Hulu or streaming local news, whether it be through static display ads on the both websites or their device. Like I don't know about anyone else here, I play a lot of Sudoku on my phone, and I get ads between every game I play. We'll be in those ads, finding the voters exactly where they are, and assisting in the targeting of that through some digital advertising tools that we have access to that has over 14,000 data points on almost everybody. Terrifying, but also very helpful for finding and making sure that the money, the limited amount of resources that we have, are able to be used in the most efficient ways possible, finding the voters and the constituents wherever they may be. So it's not just going to be social media. It's not just going to be going by zip codes and hoping we're targeting people that may come out and vote, but it's about making sure that we build an electorate that follows the cohorts we're looking at, so that way we can maximize our education message across as many voters who may vote as possible.
And it's cost effective too. I mean, in terms of keep reaching voters. So this is a good. Definitely, I'm glad it's included as an element, in what the RJC is looking at, but it's also cost effective, so it's helpful. Does that answer your question?
It does. If you could, just as a follow-up, I didn't want to hog the mic if anyone else has a question, but as a follow-up, could you also speak a bit to age diversity? Just because we're finding a lot of differentiation in terms of older voters versus newer voters we're trying to bring on. Have you guys given any thought to what that strategy will look like?
Well, I know that digital does take that into account in terms of what is most effective with folks, and that's actually a very good question, that as we're developing the community engagement pieces, KPS strategies, taking a look at that, like how do they plan to kind of engage voters that way. When we start talking about the ads that we're going to put on, maybe making sure that the way that they're that we produce them, the creative way and elements, is one that speaks to diversity in terms of age as well, because I'm 53, right? I respond very differently to information than a 20-year-old does or a 25-year-old does. So we got to make sure that our messaging is one that really is hitting all different levels. So that's a good question. Hadn't thought about it as deeply as now, but now you're giving us a lot of room for conversation with the groups that we're meeting with this week. So thanks for that.
Excellent.
Yeah, go ahead, if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add on the digital perspective of that as well, for any of the digital paid advertising, is because this is not a political campaign, but an education campaign, we're able to use avenues that a traditional political campaign can't for digital. So like the city, for example, for the multiple different elections, have been running Twitter ads, letting people know about the various different elections and what is actually on the ballot. We'll be able to do that and reach on social media platforms. For a traditional political campaign, you cannot run ads on Twitter, you cannot run ads on TikTok, you cannot run ads on Snapchat or anything of the sort. However, for an education-based campaign, you can reach the different electorates because it's a different audience on Facebook versus on Instagram versus on Twitter versus TikTok. And that will help go across the board and reach people, again, as I mentioned, where they are, rather than trying to just
Commissioner, Commissioner Yu, and then Commissioner D.
I had a question about language access. How many languages are you planning? There's so many languages spoken in our city. And so I just wanted to figure out, how do we help you with the list of the pan-Asian media, but how many languages are you planning?
I mean, we probably would follow what the city follows, which is what the top 7 or 8 top spoken languages. Again, there is now a translator, right, that has been, or translation services that has been identified by RJC for this. And so when we talk about community ethnic media, right, then we also want to make sure that part of the paid media, that really takes up a large piece of it as well. That money is going to those communities because they have multiple ways that they're communicating, with their constituencies, whether it's TV or whether it's, local TV or whether it's in newspapers or whether it's even cable channels. So we got to find a vendor that really is knowledgeable around that and make sure that we are, but it probably follow the standard of New York City, which is about the top 7 or 8 spoken languages, what we would want to look at. And we would want to make sure that we talk to the vendor along those lines.
Just to clarify, we're going to focus on the 5 voting rights languages, which is Spanish, Bengali, Korean, Chinese, traditional, Chinese simplified, as well as the additional up to like 13 languages in the local law here in New York City. But for those 5 languages, we want to make sure that we do significant engagement in those communities, given that the size of those voters in those languages, and those ballot measures will be translated in those particular languages as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Davey.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious. In addition to being able to know what sites and platforms different demographics are on when it comes to social media, and being able to develop ads for those particular sites, platforms, products, etc. Can you also, or does the information inform how you develop ads, because these are fairly, it's not the most exciting. It's exciting to us. It's exciting to me, but it might not necessarily capture the ad. I mean,
Do you think that people will not
you
want to see commission members in TikTok dancing?
Well, I'm up for that. But I'm not so sure it would get you any votes. It might get you lots of laughs, but not very many votes. So I'm just curious. Do you develop ads so that they actually, I'm sure you do,
so we
get
had,
people's attention?
I'm sure that Scott has something to say about that as well. But in terms of, we had a really great, facilitated by Harold and by Rachel, a great conversation with Banduho, who's the vendor that's going to sign to do the creative content, right? And so what they're doing is, we had a great conversation about what we were looking at. So they're going to be taking a lot of feedback to then develop, right, the different campaigns in terms of what the creative concept, the look of the campaign, maybe some of the, the campaign slogans, when we start getting to the ad component, maybe being somewhat helpful in that. So as we give them information that it'll be developed to make sure that we are being able to really reach a cross-section of voters, right, and not try to make the one-size-fits-all kind of concept. It just doesn't work in this day and age. What people respond to in the different age groups, et cetera. And across racial and ethnic lines too. Right. So that has to be, we have to be very sensitive to that, but that is what we're going to lean on, kind of like a Banduho as a creative partner here to really develop that based on the feedback that we're getting from maybe some of the community engagements, vendors, et cetera. So that's the way we look at it. I don't know if I've said anything the other time.
No, that's an agreement with how we've been thinking about it the entire time. Particularly if you look at, different ethnicities in the city receive information differently, as we all know. Some do radio, some do, WeChat, some do, WhatsApp. So we have to think about strategies that will tailor those messages to those platforms and audiences. So.
If I could.
I saw Commissioner Manta, but is this on his? And then we'll come to you, Commissioner Bain.
So I worked with Melissa in the past when it comes to GeoTV, so I know she has this covered. But I think just going back to what Mr. Thompson said, what is the plan that both of you have when it comes to GeoTV? What would you suggest that CBOs do when it comes closer to GeoTV Day? Because I know that's going to be very crucial, especially when we want to make sure that people get to the polls and vote on these ballots. So I just want to have a better understanding. What advice would you give to CBOs as GeoTV approaches, and what is needed from the CBO's end?
Essentially, what we are, the reason why we have the community partnership program is that we want to engage with as many community-based organizations as possible, and even beyond the ones that we're not able to fund. We do want them to participate in helping to engage their communities on the ballot measures. So any ways they can, and we will provide tools and resources, and we're currently working on that now, to have resource kits, different resource tools that they could pull up off our website, should be available in a few weeks, where community groups can run their own meetings. They can engage their communities on the ballot measures, be able to host events, be able to share about what the intent of what the commission's, the reason why the commission had these ballot measures put up for a vote in the first place. So the idea for GeoTV is to for as many of our stakeholders and many of our groups as possible to do something and get out and push people to the polls. So it's going to take a lot of sweat equity, a lot of effort on everyone's part. But we know that collectively, amongst the resources we do have and the resources of this commission, the various networks and access to partners around the city, we can have a really robust GeoTV operation.
I mean, the GeoTV, look, we're not going to have people knocking on doors, right? Like, we're not going to be out there trying to chase voters and telling them, look, you should go vote and make sure that you vote on these ballot proposals. There's just no, we don't have the resources for that. So that's where relying on kind of the consistency of message, whether it's visually, right, through ads that you buy, whether it's the community meetings, the digital, which is cost effective and really hitting people, whether it's through text or the social media or other ways that we communicate with them on an ongoing basis and like create a mantra and create like a pattern and a routine. Hopefully that will do. We just don't have the capacity and the resources to be able to like set up teams in these different areas and neighborhoods that we identified, because it's just too expensive, right? We want to pay people well. We have to pay payroll taxes, et cetera, right? There's just not enough resources to do that. So we have to work with the community partners that are receiving these small grants, right? And then also the other methods that we've discussed is the only way that, we believe that the consistency in that messaging can be helpful in getting people motivated to do and to go out and participate and engage with the ballot initiatives.
Thank you. Commissioner, please.
I just wanted to add something to that also, and that there is something that's different here. I mean, we all lived through many ballot reforms, and there's something different about this because when you read each of them, it's almost as if it came straight from New Yorkers, right? It's what people have lived through and what they have felt. So being able to somehow empower them to know that this is reflective of their experiences over the last decade and beyond, because I know we've been studying this beyond, but somehow to empower New Yorkers to feel that what they're seeing there is actually coming from them.
And then also just adding to that the importance of influencers and validators in this space. And so when engaging with community-based organizations, community leaders, faith community, different faith communities, and figuring out, to your point, how to make sure that what we're doing, the messaging reflects their experiences, and that it is consistent, and that it is repetitive. and figuring out what is that medium that we will use to be able to do that. Just building on Commissioner Monta's point to make sure that it's not, and to your point as well, Melissa, concerning the lack of resources to be able to keep going back. How do we make sure once we're in there, we stay in this space? So I'm trying, Commissioner Bain is going to come on in, and then before we do a rep, I'm going to go to Commissioner Coy, and then I'll go down to the end of the table. Commissioner Bermudez, Dean, you're good? She's good to go. Okay, so Commissioner Bain, Commissioner Coy, then we'll wrap up with Commissioners Thompson and Commissioner Daniel Favors, and then we'll move to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you. I thought I had a question, but a lot of what I was just running through in my thought process has been answered. I think the overall question for me is around the engagement piece. Somebody said this is not sexy. I disagree. I think this is the focal point of transformation right now. And I say that with all the bias of being a commissioner for quite some time on this committee that works extremely hard. But I think and what I want to watch and see, because I see it happening already, is the triggering of the warrior spirit in New Yorkers, is the fact that these three, and I was reading the conclusion that was placed here, that this touches on so much of the intersectionality and oppression for New York City residents. This is super important. And so I really want to watch very keenly on how that word of engagement again, right? We throw it around. But I think this has to be made super urgent. This is life and death. This is what this is. And so how we convey that as a team and we share in that, I think is central to us moving forward. And it's hard because this is all of our baby. There were 300 different concepts and ideas and places and ways we wanted to affect change in the city in a limited amount of time. And us as Black, brown, indigenous people of color, we've never had the resources required for the task. So all of us, unfortunately, are comfortable in this position of not having the resources and being resourceful, because that's what we have done in this city for some time. So again, I'm just focused in on how we turn this into something that is in your face, that it's alive, that everyone who has an opportunity to participate in this understands how important this is and how urgent this is.
Commissioner Bain, so well said. Let me just quickly add one more point to that this may be a once in a lifetime moment. It is the first in a lifetime. It is the first in the nation. And if New Yorkers move, it can set off a wave. And so helping people to appreciate that this is not necessarily coming around in the next 4, 6, 8, 10, and the way things are going, it may never come around again. And so helping New Yorkers to appreciate that they have an opportunity to impact themselves, their lives, the city, and the nation, I think that's a critical message that we need to build in. I really
my sister Angela said the challenge of the 21st century is not to demand the equal opportunity to participate in the machinery of oppression, rather is to identify and dismantle those structures in which racism continues to be embedded. This is the only way the promise of freedom can be extended to the masses of people. My sister Angela Davis said that. I think that's relevant here.
I totally agree, and I think that's, what really, I was so excited about this is because, I feel that in the time I was a council member and speaker, like I really, really wanted to talk about and deal with the systemic injustices, right? The deeply embedded systemic racism. And I think that there's been different iterations of addressing that. Here in the city of New York, we had Occupy Wall Street, which to some extent was dealing. We have BLM, right? Most recently. And these are issues that people in the city have been a part of, right? People are tired of government not being responsive to their needs, votes, right? And so this is a way of saying, figuring out the right way that it can touch people and say, no, your vote is important here, right? Because this is an opportunity to really have even racial equity plans by agency. I mean, that's incredible, right? That we're always talking about the inequities that exist. So there's gotta be the right way to message it that resonates with people, because this has, as Anita said, this has been touched, people have been living this, and people need to be able to, and there's ways of making them be able to relate to it. So that's what we have to, with the creative partners, we really have to find the right way to do that. So thank you for that comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Commissioner Coy?
Yeah, one of the, we all talk about the importance of community partnership and all that, and then I hear that it was like 105 organizations apply, but the budget is only 250,000, I believe, right? So is there any way that we can increase that budget so we can fund more groups, or reallocate?
I like how you think.
Yeah, so because we're talking about, the community partnership is so important, then I just feel like the kind of allocation of budget is not proportional. And so I don't know if that's still possible.
So let me just quickly say that the funding, the great majority of the funding that has been provided for the outreach and engagement has come via the Office of the Mayor of the City of New York. And it's a $6 million pot that has to be spread across all of these different streams of engagement. And as we've talked about, the paid media piece is a big piece. What we can do as a commission, I don't think that there's more to be gotten from the well over there, and we appreciate all that we have gotten, but we can take a look at individual organizations and just take that into consideration. But appreciate you raising the point.
Okay.
I don't think we can answer you in the affirmative in this moment, but we can take a look at it. Thank you. Commissioner Thompson, and then Commissioner Daniel Favors, and then we will wrap.
I really love the spirit of the last couple of comments. And I do hope the Deltas are involved, in some of these other sororities and fraternities, because I think they'll hear this message loud and clear. But maybe my question is more to Scott, and I'm speaking out of ignorance here to some extent, because I've recently been learning how some well-funded conservative groups have posed as Black organizations, has posed as Trinidadian organizations, and actually spread misinformation using some of those 14,000 data points. And because we're so reliant on media and digital media, it just raises the question to me as to whether there's a way to look out for that. Folks deliberately spreading misinformation. And if there's no answer right now, that's fine, but it's just something I've become aware of recently, and I'm shocked actually by how well-funded and intensive this has been, this kind of activity, so.
Excellent point, and we'll take, I'm gonna ask that we maybe just hold on that very important point. I'm not ending the conversation because it's not, but rather we have to get to our next presentation, and so point well taken and must be taken into consideration. Commissioner Daniel Favors?
Yes, I'll be brief. I noticed that there were not any of the groups that were currently brought on as vendors that indicated via their websites that they had any Black people, visibly Black folk, in their leadership. If that is in fact the case, what is the plan to accommodate that absence to ensure that Black communities are being targeted in messaging formats and language that is culturally responsive to the very diverse communities of African descent that are all across the city?
So we're proud that we have all our vendors are minority, and I don't like to use the word minority.
I was gonna say, that's a different question.
Yeah,
that's not quite the question.
Yeah, no, I know, I hear the question. I can't speak to each firm's leadership structure, but what we made sure we focus on was the fact that that they have worked and served in communities of African descent in the past and have done work in our communities. able to communicate our message, and be able to, engage with communities of African descent. We are confident that all of our vendors are able to do that. Our vendors, come from different parts of the diaspora overall. We have vendors of, Afro-Latina, have vendors that are, African American. We have vendors that are South Asian, and Afro-Latina. We were very mindful of that in our selection process, to select vendors that are, have that cultural responsiveness to their work, and we're confident that the vendors that we selected represent that.
I join you in hoping that that is the case. I just pointed out because we've seen how this story goes before, not on this commission, but in past work, where communities of color do not necessarily speak the same language as Black communities, and so I think that that's important to be aware of and to plan for, and to have an effective plan around the gaps that creates in messaging.
So again, very much appreciate the point, and if I may ask, Commissioner Daniel Favors and others on the commission, if you would just allow some time, perhaps some of your time over the course of the next week or so, to just engage more fully, to make sure that we are fully cognizant of the concerns that you're raising and that we are working to control for them. That would be very helpful. Really, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No, I unite with you, because I think on the Asian American perspective as well. So, which I've been trying to, also work with Harold to try to identify some folks who could be a subcontractor or some kind of relationship, So I hear you. I agree with you. Thank you for raising it.
We're going to wrap this conversation. Let me first just thank you for your presentation and all the commission members for their active engagement. It's very heartening to me to hear your questions, your points, your comments, because it lets me know that you are very much engaged in this aspect of the work, and we need you all engaged. I want you all to know that I am hopeful that at some point in time I'm going to see, as I'm walking down the street, those bus ads, on the subway, because we're back on public transportation. And I just remember just a couple of years ago with ranked choice voting, there came a point in time when it was just everywhere in your face, whether you liked it or not. It was in your face, and so I think that would be something to take a look at. All right. We thank you. We very much appreciate you and all you're doing, and looking forward to more work together. So I'm going to turn the conversation over once again to our Executive Director, Harold Miller, to set us up for our next presenter.
Thank you, Chair. So it's a pleasure to introduce you to Sadia Sherman, who is the Commissioner for the Mayor's Office of Equity. Though our commission is an independent body, we do have inside called a dotted line, and I see it more as a partnership, working alongside the Mayor's Office of Equity as a unit within the Mayor's Office. They work to bring together the different aspects of equity focus that the Mayor has been working through in this administration. And I know Sadia will dive more into that, but it's been a pleasure to work alongside the Mayor's Office of Equity as we continue to do our work, because also just to remind everyone here, we are dual purpose commission. So not only we are working around educating voters around ballot measures, but we also have been engaging alongside with the administration around furthering our roadmap for racial justice with the policy work that we're doing, led by Jimmy Pan and Sam Stanton, who are working with the Mayor's Office of Equity to put forth items that the commission, the general public worked on during our process last year, That didn't quite make the ballot because it wasn't, necessarily a structural change, but still seemed as important. And so we've been at the table, we've been engaging with Mo, that's what we call it for short, and other agencies to move those other priorities forward. And so Mo has been a great partner in helping us do that work in the last several months. But I'll turn it over to Sadia and I'll let her present about the Mayor's Office Equity. I don't think it was. Oh, you got it?
Okay, I'll motion to you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? And does everyone have a copy? Yeah, perfect. Great. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm really happy to be here and really an honor to present to the Commission, and just grateful for all of the work that you've done and what's on the ballot this November. I think will be really transformative for our city and potentially our nation. So thank you. And I want to also extend my appreciation to the RJC team for all of your great work. And I know, as Chair Jones-Austin shared, you have all been very hard at work to really make this happen. And so thank you. So we can go to the next slide, or if it.
Yeah, I think it was in PDF. That's fine.
And then you go to the next one. So just to give an overview of the Office of Equity, this is a new office that was established in the Adams administration during the transition process. It is an office that includes a number of existing equity-focused offices and functions and commissions that already were within city government. So it includes the Commission on Gender Equity, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's focused on issues of gender equity. It also has an independent commission that includes representatives from the City Council and other distinguished figures and New Yorkers who are focused on issues of gender equity. Obviously includes the team that is managing the day-to-day coordination of the Racial Justice Commission. It also includes the Task Force on Racial Inclusion and Equity, which is a city-led body, an interagency body that was enacted during the height of the pandemic. It includes the Young Men's Initiative, which is focused on young people, but particularly young men of color. The Unity Project, which is focused on the LGBTQ+ community with a particular focus on young people. And then the Pay Equity Cabinet, which is new, which will focus on pay inequities within the municipal workforce. Next slide. So our office is really, designed to help foster a New York City that is free of racism and bigotry and sexism and poverty and age discrimination and a variety of tools of oppression. It really is a vision that came through the transition process, and I want to acknowledge Chair Joan Austin and Deputy Mayor, well, I'm still calling you Deputy Mayor, and Commissioner Phil Thompson, who were part of that process to really help craft a vision for an office that is designed to help foster a city that's more equitable, a city where people have unburdened access to resources, where New Yorkers can thrive, and where there's economic security and well-being for all. So, we come to this work at a particular time for our city as we, are still recovering from a pandemic. And we know that equity work has been ongoing in New York City. So in 2019, there's Executive Order 45, which mandates social indicator reporting and other assessments across government. As I shared, in 2020, the Task Force on Racial Inclusion and Equity was enacted, which was really formed in response to the racial disparities that were laid bare throughout the pandemic. And I certainly want to acknowledge Commissioner Thompson as well as Commissioner Bermudez, who were integral to the work of the task force, and Commissioner Thompson, who was our co-chair. The Racial Justice Commission, obviously, which was established to root out systemic racism. The Pay Equity Cabinet, and then there's a number of ongoing functions within city government, such as those that are within our office, as well as those that are spread throughout the administration. So the goal of this office was to really bring together this existing body of work a number of existing equity-focused offices and commissions, and to really begin to build out a framework that's aligned, that's intersectional, that begins to move the whole of government together in one accord. So, the task force offers a really strong foundation for the work of the Office of Equity, because the task force used a whole of government approach. Every city agency, office, mayoral office was represented on the task force with a very clear mission and vision to drive resources and to respond to the needs of the communities that were hardest hit by the pandemic. And so that work is ongoing, but really serves as a foundation for the way in which the Office of Equity will work moving forward. This office is really central to the administration's vision to advance equity, and so not only is the Office of Equity building out a body of work, but also supporting a number of priority initiatives that are already happening across the administration. And then obviously, as we built out this office, we're looking at lessons learned from other cities. New York obviously is not the first to do this, and so we know that equity goals need to be tied to budget priorities. There needs to be a centralized office. We need to make sure that agencies have representatives across all levels of the organization. We need to really act upon the data that we collect and use it to make decisions and respond to inequities. We also need to ensure that agencies have the time necessary to ramp up, as well as a mechanism for oversight and accountability. Next slide, please. So as we build out our work, what we're focused on right now is building out a set of goals and priorities that cut across equity domains. And a lot of this really builds on the work that was established during the pandemic, where we identified 33 priority neighborhoods, which were really driven by not only health disparities and the impact of COVID, but socioeconomic disparities, as well as characteristics that made communities particularly at risk for the adverse impact of the pandemic. And we know, right, that the adverse impact of the pandemic was largely driven by these structural inequities that our city has experienced for decades. And so we're expanding that analysis with an eye towards the city's recovery, building in indicators that focus on livability and the built environment and arts and culture, economic mobility, education, safety, a variety of characteristics that impact our lives as New Yorkers, to really identify key disparities that we can set actionable goals to reduce during this administration, as well as opportunities that we can maximize. This work is all powered by and needs to happen in partnership with the community. So part of this work will include a robust effort around civic engagement, as well as making sure that we have some infrastructure work that's happening in government in parallel. So our approach is to really work through sort of 5 pillars, and actually you can go to the next slide, I'll just walk through these. So they're structural, and that's really the infrastructure, sort of the plumbing of government, making sure that we're providing agencies with support to address policies, practices that really upheld and perpetuate structural racism and other inequities, as well as making sure that we're looking for that in the city programs that serve New Yorkers. The Racial Justice Roadmap is a really great example of that, and so as Harold shared, we're working to really make sure that those policy priorities are advanced within this administration. There are programs and initiatives that this office will continue to launch, and this is really with the understanding that, obviously, rooting out structural inequities and structural racism does not happen overnight, and it's important that New Yorkers have real-time programs, initiatives that serve the needs that we see today, and so that work will continue, which really is, very aligned with a lot of the work that happens through YMI, as well as the task force, which is, really moving with a sense of urgency. We have a focus on culture and practice, and really working across our city agencies to support training needs, to really support equity officers and chief diversity officers and employee resource groups, and a variety of stakeholders that will need to be involved in changing the culture within their organizations. There's a focus on external engagement, making sure that we're working with community and partners as well as New Yorkers directly. Our Tree Neighborhood Initiative is a great example of that, where we've been able to build out community-based coalitions in the 33 impacted communities. And then working on a level that's focused on policy. And so, this is policy at the city level, so, we shared the example of expanding the role of the Commission on Gender Equity, for instance, but also looking at levers at the state and federal level that impact the lives of New Yorkers. Next slide, please. So I have a snapshot here of just some current initiatives that are happening across our office, and certainly won't go into these in detail, but there are programs that are happening in real time. There's policy work that's underway, interagency bodies that have been convened, as well as campaigns, activations, events, and direct community engagement that's happening in parallel. So here's where we are, and here's our path moving forward. So the office was established by executive order in February. The commissioner and the initial team come on board in the spring with an initial framework, and our office was announced in May. We have been updating that analysis that I shared, which will really help set priorities and identify where there's an opportunity to really move the dial in 2, 4, 8 years, 10 years, in ways that involve all agencies and all facets of government. We're relaunching our task force to really help advance that agenda based on that data, and building out a culture work stream that's really laying the foundation for the individual agency work. So, for us as a city to get to a place where agencies have individual racial equity plans, we know that there's a lot of foundational work that's needed at the agency level to support that. And then we are looking to bring together our partners to really help inform that agenda and lay out priorities. And then we would move forward with that plan in the fall. Obviously, we still have a lot of work that's happening in parallel. Really proud that we were able to expand citywide savings for our youngest New Yorkers in kindergarten. This is a program that grew out of the Task Force on Racial Inclusion and Equity, and we were able to activate within this administration, as well as recent announcements during Pride Month to really make investments within the LGBTQ+ community, and particularly investments in the transgender community and BIPOC-led organizations. So looking forward, we look forward to obviously supporting this public information campaign, which we know will be critical for our city. And I would emphasize that while we're excited, right, that we have an Office of Equity in this administration, we know that these ballot measures are really important to ensure that this is the work of the city moving forward past all of us, right, and that there's accountability measures for this office as part of that, and there's a commission, and there are a number of other features within the ballot measures that are really important for New Yorkers. And so we, certainly stand as partners in that work, and personally committed to making sure that New Yorkers are educated before they go to the polls this fall. We also, as Harold shared, are working to advance other recommendations through the RJC roadmap as part of this overall equity agenda. And then we certainly look forward to staying connected with you as our work grows, and making sure that all the great work that the Commission did leading up to these measures, right, that we start to integrate that into the build out of this office. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if I may just jump in here and first and foremost express my appreciation to you for the work that you've been doing now for better than 2 years. It has been your work, working with Commissioner Thompson, or then Deputy Mayor Thompson, and others in the de Blasio administration that probably in great part helped to shape then Mayor de Blasio's thinking about the value add of a racial justice commission to look at structural racism and how to begin to undo it, because he saw the strides that were being made through your work. And so in many ways it is because of what you've done that we are at this point. And I want to thank you for that, publicly thank you for that, and then also express my appreciation for the partnership that you have helped us to birth, and that you've nurtured, working very closely with the RJC team on a lot of the work that they've done. And I personally have had an opportunity to work with you, and just delighted that as we move these racial justice ballot measures forward, we're appreciating, we recognize that the synergy is there. They complement each other. One does not stand in place of the other, It all must be done together. And just building on your last point, you know, you shared, you said, you know, we're here now, but we're here by executive order. And executive orders at the federal level, the state level, and the local level can all be undone. And so we want to make sure that your work and the work of bringing about racial justice endures beyond one administrator to the next, right? We just want to make sure that it endures. And the way that we're doing this, and you're supporting us and helping us to do this, is with these racial justice ballot measures and establishing an Office of Equity in the charter. So I just want to thank you and let you all know that we very much appreciate, let you know that we all very much appreciate your partnership. We may have a few minutes for questions or comments. Commissioner Thompson, I think it's fair that you begin and kick us off, right?
Well, thanks. I second everything that our chairwoman just said about Sadia Sherman, and I also want to thank the mayor for his wisdom in selecting Sadia Sherman as the first commissioner for the Office of Equity. I think that was a brilliant choice,
Indeed.
The right choice, and I think she's earned it.
Indeed.
And I also want to underscore something Sadia said, that every agency having to do racial equity plans is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It is really reinventing government. And that's a massive undertaking. And to that end, I would hope that the chancellor of the City University of New York, where there are 500,000 young New Yorkers enrolled as students, gets fully involved, because what could be more exciting for students than helping actually rethink how government works to actually serve the needs of people in communities. And I think with 500,000 students and tens of thousands of faculty, whatever, we can get a lot of help.
Absolutely.
In this undertaking, and it's extremely exciting. And so, and I think that's also something that can get folks motivated in November.
Absolutely.
So I just want to say.
Very much appreciate that, and I'll just quickly share with the commission that our executive director, Miller, has actually already begun the work of engaging with the chancellor, you know, for this very purpose and others. And then additionally, we've got some conferences that will be coming up at New York University with the student body there, possibly Fordham University, as well as Columbia. We're also seeking to engage with the New School and wherever they'll have us. We're also doing some work, and Commissioner Davey has been helpful with seminaries across New York City. So trying to find students here, there, and everywhere. And if we can get to Medgar Evers.
I was just going to say, how on earth could we not be on that list?
We will be there. We will be there. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Sherman?
I'll just add that I agree with what Phil just said, what you said. The work that you've been doing is amazing. For a lot of people who are skeptics, I have to confess that I would hear that, you know, just bringing everything together the way you have and really moving the agenda forward. I can't thank you enough, both on a personal level and a commissioner level, on behalf of New York City residents, and so looking forward to definitely cement that work.
That's right.
I mean, we have to be like creative about, you know, things, but I think we can ride on your coattails probably and say, hey, this is happening already, let's make it like real, you know? And so that way it really adds to what we can say to the public. And if you hadn't, you know, achieved those things, we probably couldn't. So thank you on all those levels.
Absolutely, and Commissioner Bermudez, when you speak of that, we can also come at it from the flip side. Because of what you've done,
Right.
it makes the possibility and the reality of what we're now seeking to do
Yeah.
more fathomable. It's more attainable, because it's not like we're just like creating these ideas out of, you know, thin air, and they'll have a home. So we thank you. We thank you very much for your time with us today. And this is, there's more partnership to come. Stay where you are. We're going to bring this meeting to a close. And then those who are here, we can enjoy some wine and cheese and, yeah, something like that. You know, if you'd like to stay around for a few minutes. Before we close officially though, I just want to take a moment. We've called the commissioners' names who've been at the table since we began this initiative, but we haven't actually called the names of the staff, and their names need to be called. And so I just want to take a quick minute. In addition, right? But let me call them. Of course, I begin with Sam Stanton, who's been with the commission since its inception. They went away for a little while and then came back, and so we're very appreciative. Jimmy Pan has been with us since the beginning. Even took a little bit of paternity leave, but came on back. Melanie Ash, who has been with us. And then, you know, is now doing, I guess, kind of dual time, right? Triple duty or dual duty with the law department, but is with us as well. And then we have Rachel Cato, who's been with us from the beginning as well. And has, in many ways, with Harold, as we have, you know, we're a little bit more of a skeletal staff, but we're still mighty. Has been, you know, holding the reins along with our executive director, Harold Miller. We appreciate him. And then we have a new friend. We've got someone new at the table. We've got Joe. And Joe, what's your last name?
Rivera.
Good to have you here, Joe Rivera. He is our community field organizer. And so we're just thankful that you all have stayed the course. This is hard work. And at times it's been all the more challenging, especially when we were trying to get that money. But you all stayed the course, right? And we very much appreciate all of you for it. And I also just want to give a nod to the AV team that has been with us throughout this journey. Thank you all so very much. So, great conversation. Really excited to see you all as engaged as you were on day one. You know, we're going all the way.
That's right.
Right? We are going all the way. And, you know, we are not just hoping for the best, we're going to do the work to ensure that we have the very best possible outcome, right? We'll get it done. So I want to thank you all for being here. And more to come. Is there, I see hands going up. Anything that I've missed? Okay,
Yes.
Good deal.
For our fearless leader, Madam Chair, let's give it up.
So I have to make you all laugh real quickly and tell you, you all know, they know I'm a child of the church. I feel like I'm closing out a revival or something like that, right? So, you know, what, Phil, help me, what's that like, if all heads are clear, or all minds are clear, all hearts are clear, or something like that? We're gonna bring this to a close. So thank you all. I wanna thank the public for listening in, and just get informed, get engaged, let people know what we're doing here, and that if these proposals pass, we have an opportunity to change New York City and the nation. This meeting is adjourned.
When I was little, my dad would read revivals in the south of the country. At night, getting the feel of it, you know.
How you doing?
Good.
You know, they said 105 organizations.
I know. Wow.